everyone. Welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision in HO Scale. My name is Darrell Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host on this Super Bowl Sunday for a special update on a couple of things that I have done this week, and I wanted to share with you. Actually, I did quite a bit this week. But what I want to share with you actually is pretty involved. So I did complete the staging tracks for the excursion train and the maintenance away train. Also did a little bit of work on the Aspen tunnels. And then I did some electrical work that I want to share with you. And actually it's so much to share that I'm actually going to put the electrical work aside. And that is going to be a separate video, probably tomorrow or Tuesday. Sometime this week I'm going to have a video that's just on the installation of the new booster and making sure all the current levels and voltage levels are correct for the layout, and just checking everything to see how it all works. But today I wanted to share on this update the staging yard tracks, and as you can see, I do have both tracks in. I was able to build one more turnout here, which I added to the one that I put in last week. So not only is there just one track coming in, but there's one track that then divides into two tracks. So I have a track for the excursion trains and then also one for the maintenance away trains. Now, as you notice, they are both just hand thrown right now. And I'm looking for ways to power these turnouts from the surface. I can't really get to them underneath. So if you have any suggestions on how to power these from underneath the layout, I would be very interested to know some of your solutions. I did add track all the way to the end of the bench work that I added. So you can see the locomotive is all the way to the end of the track that I put in there. And I have 10 cars in there, plus the FEF and 2 water tanks. And I still have room for the big boy there, as you can see. Now, if I do add a diesel along with it, I will have to take one of the cars off, so it would only give me 9 cars. And I do have room to put some more track in there for the maintenance of rain. I kind of ran out of track. So there you can see the locomotive at the end of the track, and I want to just share with you a little bit on how this is all going to work. So when somebody runs the excursion train, they'll be able to see it at that point. And again, as I mentioned last week, the staging yard tracks for these two does not go all the way through, so you have to have some backing up. And as you can notice, I put it in reverse. And then if you look up at the mirror, you can see the excursion train backing up. So if I'm operating this during an operating session, I really wouldn't even go back into the staging yard area. I would kind of see the locomotive there at the very end, get it started in the reverse direction. Here you can kind of see where I'm standing. This is in the Evanston yard area, where the trains come out up the helix and then from Green River. But to get the excursion train, it is heading eastbound, so I would need to back it out of these 2 tracks, past that one track that I put in there. And then once I get the turnout thrown, this is why I want to make it a power turnout eventually. It's going to be a pain to go under the layout and throw that turnout. So eventually I want to make that powered. But once you get the turnout thrown, then you can come back through the staging yard to go in the easterly direction, or an eastward direction. I'm not talking about wind here. I'm talking about trains. So in the eastward direction, then you can kind of pick it up here also as it goes through. Now, one thing you do have to have, if the staging yard is completely full, you won't be able to do this. So there will have to be one track from track 7 through 12. One of those is going to have to be open for the train to come through. And usually during an operating session, there will be trains out on the layout. It's very unusual for one or the other sides. 1 through 6 is one side, 7 through 12 is the other. Very unusual for all 7 through 12 to be full during an operating session. Maybe at the end of the session. But as you can see, now it's heading eastward on the layout. Okay, for the maintenance away train, this is heading now in the westward direction. You can kind of see an idea of what cars I have on the maintenance away train. I have a boxcar there. I have one weathered piece of rolling stock. I have 4 ballast hoppers, a couple of Herzog gondolas, and some maintenance away flat cars with some equipment on it, a porta potty, of course, dump truck, and a backhoe. So this can just go straight out since it's already in this direction. Now I might have these 2 trains switched from time to time. I'll turn them around. They won't always be in this direction. But the ones that are going westward will head up the helix and just come right out of these 2 tracks. The one that's going eastward will have to back up first and then head out and go through the staging yard. Now, kind of switches around when it comes back. So here the maintenance away train has gone all the way across the whole the entire layout. And again, you're going to have a track free in order for it to do this. But it'll go all the way through the all the way through the staging yard and come back all the way through, and then it'll have to back in. So no matter what direction you're going, at some point in time you're going to have to back, put the train in reverse to get it either into the staging tracks for these 2 trains or out of them. All right, so we cleared the turnout, and now we're going to back in. I was watching some videos of the excursion trains, trying to get an idea of how many cars are on each of those trains. And the Promontory race, or the race to Promontory Point, that was, I think, May 8th and May 12th of 2019, to mark the 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. Anyway, I saw a video of that, and on May 8th, when it was going to Promontory Point, there were 9 cars. 9 cars, of course, the big boy, the 2 water tenders, the FEF, and 1 diesel, and then 9 cars. Going back from Ogden back to Cheyenne, there was actually 10 cars. And they take back 11 cars. There were 11 cars. There you can see what extra track we'll be able to have. Again, I want to make sure you take some time to check out the video coming up in a couple of weeks. I wanted to just mention it again before we get to the Aspen tunnels that we're going to be doing. But be sure to look for that if you're interested in installing DCC on your layout and how to add boosters and get everything leveled out and done correctly, hopefully. I did put some tunnel portals together. I just used a hot glue gun and some plywood. These are Chooch tunnel portals. Kind of wanted to use the same type all the way through. Pretty consistent on the prototype, so wanted to follow that. And then I hot glued them to some plywood so that they would stand up, and then also hot glued some retaining walls, those that are made by Walthers. And I put them all kind of in the same direction here. I just did this on a table, but then when I put them on the layout to try and figure out the terrain and how the mountain would actually flow around the tunnels, it kind of like did not make sense. Now this is the direction of the hill, kind of goes at an angle. It doesn't go at a 90-degree angle. It's kind of offset, so it kind of goes like this. And so the tunnel portals are going to be lined up at an angle also. They won't be right next to each other. Okay, so you can kind of see how the hills are kind of lined up, and then the tunnel portals are kind of lined up at the same angles. But here's what I couldn't figure out, okay, how the land would actually flow between here. Now you may be looking at this and already know what the answer is. I did kind of figure out what was cattywampus on here and just didn't look right. So think about that, see if you have the answer, and see if you have the same answer that I came up with. But I was not going to be able to do anything that looked realistic with them being all the retaining walls in the same orientation. Okay, so here's what was wrong, is that the ones for the second wall there needed to go back to kind of have that to complete that flow. Okay, so I was not going to be able to have them all kind of go in the same orientation. So now we have kind of a better flow. That very back one, I might move that. We'll kind of see how it goes, but we might have to redo that. Now they still had the weird angles, and I decided it probably would look better to just have a solid wall between the two and not have the angles. And that's kind of it's kind of how the prototype does it from what I've seen. If you have two tunnels close together, they just put a wall connecting the two. So that's kind of how things are going to go. So this definitely, I think, is going to be the way we're going to go, and I think it's going to look pretty good. Now here's 90 degrees would be if it was like that. And you notice again, the hills kind of go at an angle from one hill to the next, and then the tunnels kind of follow the same angle. So I think it's going to look pretty realistic. We'll see. This week I am going to do some ballasting of the track inside the tunnels, and then I'll put some webbing and hopefully get some plaster going, and we'll actually see some mountain contours here. Okay, so something to look forward to for next week. All right, I want to show you a little bit on how things operate with the excursion train and the maintenance away train. There's a couple of reasons why I wanted to have these two types of trains on the layout. One reason is that they both are very cool. I really like the look of them. I like that they're prototypical, and it's just a cool variety. Pretty exciting type of train to have, especially the excursion train. So that was one reason. I just was really kind of, I've seen these trains and definitely kind of fell in love with them. So I definitely wanted to have them on the layout just because of the cool factor. But the second reason is operationally. They really add some interest to how things are operated. So here's just want to give you an overview of how this is kind of going to work. So when we have the excursion train run on the layout, it makes 2 PR stops, sometimes 3, but usually I'm thinking about just have 2 PR stops. One at Evanston, which we're coming through here, and the other one's probably going to be at Echo, which is past the Wasatch control point and past Castle Rock, and kind of the dividing point between the Weber River Canyon and the Echo Canyon. So here we are at Evanston. This is one of the stops. And during operating sessions, we'll just have it stop for like 10 minutes. It's kind of like a PR stop. I might put a bunch of people standing around when we run the excursion train, but here you see the train coming up towards the station. This is where it's going to stop. Now it would probably stop on the other track, but that's right. We're just kind of doing this as a demonstration to see how things are going to go. You really wouldn't want people going across the tracks there to kind of get a close-up look of the engine, but we'll have to work on that a little bit. So there's a station at Evanston, and it's coming here to a stop. people taking pictures and so forth. But we still have trains running on the layout. So here we have a train coming in the other direction, coming from the Aspen tunnels in towards Evanston. Now, normally with just two trains coming in two different directions, they would just go by each other. It is a double track main line, so they can very easily just run past each other. But now with the excursion train in the mix and it stopped at Evanston, the dispatcher has to figure out a way to continue to have the trains moving without stopping the traffic too much. Now again, this probably would be a case, the way we're going to run this probably would not be very safe for pedestrians. As I'm watching this right now, I'm kind of realizing I'm not sure they would operate things like this. They would definitely have the excursion train on the other track close to the station and then keep people off the track. But anyway, you kind of get the idea of how it changes the operation. So here, this westward train has to come to a stop even though it looks like the track is free, as we wait for a train to come in the other direction.
We'll find out.
Now this train normally, it is a eastward train, so normally it would be on the right hand running, but it had to go around the excursion train, so now it's crossing over to go back onto the right hand track. Now again, as I look at this, this is really not how they would do things, I don't think. I don't think they would stop the excursion train and then run the coal train in front of it. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit and see what would be the best way. Again, I think it would be better if the excursion train was on the track next to the station. Those of you who have watched the excursion trains, let me know if what kind of experience you've had as far as the other trains running by the excursion trains. I remember an excursion train, the Challenger, stopped in Rochelle once, and I do seem to remember while it was there was another freight train that went through and went past the excursion train. Anyway, now that this train is passed, then the dispatcher can go ahead and throw the turnouts and set the signal for the train to go ahead and head through. I think also the dispatcher would probably give the stack train priority over the coal train. Not sure about that. Especially an empty coal train. Maybe the coal plant needs, or the mine needs some empties really quick. And these may be empty containers heading back to the west coast. All right, the excursion train also gets running I decided not to get the Trix Big Boy. I may not get any Big Boy at all. I just kind of like this train the way it is, but I probably will get a Big Boy. If I do, it'll probably be the Broadway limited import one that's coming out in April. We'll see how I feel in April. I do have one on reserve with Lombard Hobbies. So traffic is moving in both directions once again. But you get a good idea of how having an excursion train can make things interesting as far as making trains wait for the excursion train and running around the excursion train. I think what you would probably see more often would be trains stopping as the excursion train goes by. And not so much the excursion train stopping and the trains going by. Have to give some thought. Your input on that would be interesting to know. Here we have how the maintenance away train now adds some interest. It's kind of the same type of deal. Right now my train is a feathered boxcar, some ballast cars, gondolas. I want to get a gondola crane. There's a couple of different ones. I saw one on Shapeways. If you know where I can get a model of a gondola crane, a tie crane, because I want to fill those gondolas up, at least one of the gondolas up with ties, and then have a gondola crane, the one where the crane rides on the gondola. Here, by the way, we have a flashing yellow on the bottom, so we are crossing over. This train is basically going to a section of track that has been identified as needing some work. So it's going to go ahead and head to that section of track and stop and try to perform the work, while the other trains are going to have to maneuver around it. That's a awesome die-cast Caterpillar crane, by the way, or backhoe, I should say. I'll probably have a couple of locomotives, either another SD 40N like this one, or maybe a couple of Jeeps, not sure yet. So this train is going to go ahead and stop this location. This is where the track needs a little work. So it's going to go ahead and stop here, and then the trains have to maneuver around it. Now, on the Evanston sub, there aren't a lot of industries. It's mostly mountainous area. So this is a good way to get some operational interest without having additional industries along the line. The only industries on the layout are the engine facilities, the car repair shop in Evanston. There's a UTLX tank car repair facility, a Trono plant and mine in Westvaco, and then a cement plant at Devil's Slide. Right, so right behind the maintenance away train, there's a freight train that wants to, of course, go through. It blows its horn for the crossing here. Definitely need to get some actual crossings going here. Here's the UTLX facility that I mentioned. And then on the upper level, you see the signals. Just past those signals on the other side of the peninsula is the Westvaco Trono plant. All right, so this train is going to have to stop because of the maintenance away train that's working on the tracks just ahead of it. Now this will all be directed by the dispatcher, so definitely is something that's going to make being a dispatcher a little more challenging, but hopefully more challenging will mean more interesting and more fun. All right, it has to stop there. It can't cross over into the other track because there's a train coming up the grade. Now it's not blowing its horn for this road because these are maintenance roads here in the mountains. I'm not sure if the trains blow the horns for the maintenance roads or not. I probably would if there's people here working. Some other things I want to get for this maintenance away train, I want to get some ramps that get the equipment off the flat cars. Probably want to get another flat car. Here you can see the equipment has been moved down and there is some work being done. Not sure exactly what's being done. I think one of the main things that they'll do is replace ties and then realign the track. So that's why I definitely want to get the gondolas full of ties and get a tie crane on there. The first time I was there with some friends at the Evanston subdivision, there was a lot of track maintenance going on. That was in June of 2021. And it's kind of gave me the idea of having some maintenance away trains, is because there was some work being done, and we talked to some UP guys that are waiting, and they were just in a pickup truck, and so we talked to them a little bit, and they said that summertime is when they do a lot of the maintenance, and it's kind of an ongoing thing throughout the summer. So definitely something I wanted to add to the layout. Here we have an ethanol tank train. All right, with the ethanol tank train passed, now dispatcher can go ahead and throw the crossover and give this train a signal to cross over into the other track and head on down the Wasatch grade. Here you get a good view of the train crossing over from one track to the next. These 3 locomotives are all scale trains. I take that back. 2 scale trains, AC 4400s. The 3rd locomotive is a Intermountain Tier 4 GEVO. Need to finish these crossings also. Put some wood ties in there, some timbers for the crossing. All the crossings that I've seen in the mountains where the maintenance trains have been some kind of timber. I think for the ones in town, we'll probably use the concrete crossings or maybe the rubber crossings. I have to check the prototype and see what's at each location. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you learned something and hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to stay tuned for the DCC booster installation coming up later this week. And have fun watching the Super Bowl. Go Chiefs. Take care, everybody.